Chapter 28 of Colonel Quaritch, V.C. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Colonel Quaritch, V.C. by H. Rider Haggard. Chapter 28. How George Treated Johnnie. Some 2 or 3 days before the scene described in the last chapter, the faithful George had suddenly announced his desire to visit London. "What?" said the squire in astonishment, for George had never been known to go out of his own county before. "Why, what on earth are you going to do in London?" "Well, squire," answered his retainer, looking marvellously knowing, "I don't rightly know, but there's a cheap train goes up to this here exhibition on the Tuesday morning and comes back on the Thursday evening. 10 shillings both ways, that's the fare, and as I see in the Chronicle, I do, that there's a wonderful show of these newfangled self-tying and delivering reapers, such as they use so oversea in America, and I have a fancy to see them, and have a holiday look round London town. So as there ain't nothing particular a-doing, if you haven't got anything to say against it, I think I'll go, squire." "All right," said the squire. "Are you going to take your wife with you?" "Why, no, squire. I said that I wanted to go for a holiday, and that ain't no holiday to take the missus to." And George chuckled in a manner that evidently meant volumes. And so it came to pass that on the afternoon of the day of the transfer of the mortgages from Edward Cossey to Mr. Quest, the great George found himself wandering vaguely about the vast expanses of the Colinderies and not enjoying himself in the least. He had been recommended by some travelled individual in Boisingham to a certain lodging near Liverpool Street Station, which he found with the help of a friendly porter. Thence he set out for the exhibition, but being of a prudent mind, thought that he would do well to save his money and walk the distance. So he walked and walked till he was tired, and then, after an earnest consultation with a policeman, he took a bus, which an hour later landed him at the Royal Oak. His further adventures we need not pursue. Suffice it to say that, having started from his lodging at 3, it was past 7 o'clock at night when he finally reached the exhibition, more thoroughly wearied than though he had done a good day's harvesting. Here he wandered for a while in continual dread of having his pocket picked, seeking reaping machines and discovering none, till at length he found himself in the gardens, where the electric light display was in full swing. Soon wearying of this, for it was a cold, damp night, he made a difficult path to a buffet inside the building, where he sat down at a little table and devoured some very unpleasant-looking cold beef. Here slumber overcame him, for his weariness was great, and he dozed. Presently, through the muffled roar and hum of voices which echoed in his sleep-dulled ears, he caught the sound of a familiar name, which woke him up all of a heap, as he said afterward. The name was Quest. Without moving his body, he opened his eyes. At the very next table to his own were seated 2 people, a man and a woman. He looked at the latter first. She was clad in yellow, and was very tall and thin and fierce-looking, so fierce-looking that George involuntarily jerked his head back and brought it with painful force in contact with the wall. It was the Tiger herself, and her companion was the coarse, dreadful-looking man called Johnnie, whom she had sent away in the cab on the night of Mr. Quest's visit. "Oh," Johnnie was saying, "so Quest is the covey's name, is it? And he lives in a city called Boisingham, does he? He is an oof bird." Rich. "Rather," answered the Tiger, "if only one can make the dollar trickle, but he is a nasty mean one, he is. Look here, not a cent, not a silver have I got to bless myself with, and I daren't ask him for any more, not till January. And how am I going to live till January? I got the sack from the music hall last week because I was a bit jolly, and old Thompson, the conductor, wanted to drop 10% on my salary because he said I didn't draw as I used to, and that I was getting old and ugly. So I just caught him one with the handle of my brolly that made him see stars, and the beast had me up for assault, and it was 40 shillings in costs, and now I can't get another billet anyway, and I've got a bill of sale over the furniture, and I've sold all my jewels down to my ticker, or at least most of them, and there's that brute," and her voice rose to a subdued scream, "living like a fighting cock, and rolling in oof, while his poor wife is left to starve." "Wife? Oh yes, we know all about that," said the gentleman called Johnnie. A look of doubt and cunning passed across the woman's face. Evidently she feared that she had said too much. "Well, it's as good a name as another," she said. "Oh, don't I wish that I could get a grip of him. I'd wring him." And she twisted her long bony hands as a washerwoman would when they wring a cloth. "I'd back you too," said Johnnie. "And now, adored Edithia, I've had enough of this blooming show and I'm off. Perhaps I shall look down in Pimlico way this evening. Ta-ta." "Well, you may as well stand a liquor first," said the adored one. "I'm pretty dry, I can tell you." "Certainly, with pleasure. I will order one. Waiter, a brandy and soda for this lady. 6 of brandy, if you please. She's very delicate and wants support." The waiter grinned and brought the drink, and the man Johnnie turned round as though to pay him, but really he departed without doing so. George watched him go, and then looked again at the lady, whose appearance seemed to fascinate him. "Well, if that ain't a master one," he said to himself, "and she called herself his wife, she did, and then drew up like a slug's horns. Hang me if I don't stick to her till I find out a bit more of the tale." Thus ruminated George, who, be it observed, was no fool, and who had a hearty dislike and mistrust of Mr. Quest. While he was wondering how he was going to work, an unexpected opportunity occurred. The Tiger had finished her brandy and soda and was preparing to leave, when the waiter swooped down upon her. "Money, please, miss," he said. "Money?" she said. "Why, you're paid." "Come, none of that," said the waiter. "I want a shilling for the brandy and soda." "A shilling, do you? Then you'll have to wait. You cheating white-faced rascal, you, my friend paid you before he went away." "Oh, we've had too much of that game," said the waiter, beckoning to a constable, to whom, in spite of the fair Edithia's very rigorous and pointed protestations, he was proceeding to give her in charge, for it appeared that she had only 2 pence about her. This was George's opportunity, and he interfered. "I think, marm," he said, "that the fat gent with you was a playing of a little game. He only pretended to pay the waiter." "Playing a little game, was he?" gasped the infuriated Tiger. "If I don't play a little game on him when I get my chance, my name is not Edith de Begenay, the nasty mean beast, the—" "Permit me, marm," said George, putting a shilling on the table, which the waiter took and departed satisfied. "I can't bear to see a real lady like you in difficulty." "Well, you are a gentleman, you are," she said. "Not at all, marm, that's my way. And now, marm, wouldn't you have another?" No objection was raised by the lady, who had another, with the result that she became, if not exactly tipsy, at any rate not far off it. Shortly after, this building was cleared, and George found himself standing in Exhibition Road with the woman on his arm. "You're going to give me a lift home, ain't you?" she said. "Yes, marm, for sure I am," said George, sighing as he thought of the cab fare. Accordingly they got into a hansom, and Mrs. de Begenay, having given him the address in Pimlico, of which George instantly made a mental note, they started. "Come in and have a drink," she said, when they arrived, and accordingly he paid the cab, half a crown it cost him, and was ushered by the woman with a simper into the gilded drawing-room. Here the Tiger had another brandy and soda, after which George thought that she was about in a fit state for him to prosecute his inquiries. "Wonderful place this London, marm. I never was up here afore, and I had no idea that I should find folks so friendly, as I was saying to my friend Lawyer Quest down at Boisingham yesterday." "Hullo, what's that?" she said. "Do you know the old man?" "If you mean Lawyer Quest, why, in course I do. And Mrs. Quest too. Ah, she's a pretty one, she is." Here the lady burst into a flood of incoherent abuse, which tired her so much that she had a 4th brandy and soda. George mixed it for her, and he mixed it strong. "Is he rich?" she asked, as she put down the glass. "What, Lawyer Quest? Well, I should say that he is about the warmest man in our part of the county." "And here I am starving," burst out the horrible woman with a flood of drunken tears, "starving, without a shilling to pay for a cab or a drink, while my wedded husband lives in luxury with another woman. You tell him that I won't stand it. You tell him that if he don't find a thou pretty quick, I'll let him know the reason why." "I don't quite understand, marm," said George. "There's a lady down in Boisingham as is the real Mrs. Quest." "It's a lie," she shrieked. "It's a lie. He married me before he married her. I could have him in the dock to-morrow, and I would too if I wasn't afraid of him, and that's a fact." "Come, marm, come," said George. "Draw it mild from that tap." "You won't believe me, won't you?" said the woman, on whom the liquor was now beginning to take its full effect. "Then I'll show you," and she staggered to a desk, unlocked it, and took from it a folded paper which she opened. It was a marriage licence, or purported to be so. But George, who was not too quick at his reading, had only time to note the name Quest and the church, St. Bartholomew's, Hackney, when she snatched it away from him and locked it up again. "There," she said, "it isn't any business of yours. What right have you to come prying into the affairs of a poor lone woman?" And she sat down upon the sofa beside him, threw her long arm round his neck, rested her painted face upon his shoulder, and began to weep, the tears of intoxication. "Well, blow me," said George to himself, "if this ain't a master one. I wonder what my old missus would say if she saw me in this fix. I say, marm." But at that moment the door opened, and in came Johnnie, who had evidently also been employing the interval in refreshing himself, for he rolled like a ship in a sea. "Well," he said, "and who the deuce are you? Come, get out of this, you Methody parson-faced clodhopper, you. Fairest Edithia, what means this?" By this time the fairest Edithia had realised who her visitor was, and the trick whereby he had left her to pay for the brandy and soda recurring to her mind, she sprang up and began to express her opinion of Johnnie in violent and libellous language. He replied in appropriate terms, as people whose health are proposed always do, according to the newspaper reports, and fast and furious grew the fun. At length, however, it seemed to occur to Johnnie that he, George, was in some way responsible for this state of affairs, for without word or warning he hit him on the nose, which proved too much for George's Christian forbearance. "You would, you fat lubber, would you?" he said, and sprang at him. Now Johnnie was big and fat, but Johnnie was rather drunk, and George was tough and exceedingly strong. In almost less time than it takes to write it, he had the abominable Johnnie by the scruff of the neck, and had with a mighty jerk hauled him over the sofa, so that he lay face downward thereon. By the door, quite convenient to his hand, stood George's ground ash stick, a peculiar good and well-grown one, which he had cut himself in Honham wood. He seized it. "Now, my lad," he said, "I'll teach you how to do the trick where I come from," and he laid on without mercy. Whack, whack, whack went the ground ash on Johnnie's tight clothes. He yelled and swore, and struggled in the grip of the sturdy countryman. But it was of no use. The ash came down like fate. Never was Johnnie so bastinadoed before. "Give it, the brute, give it him!" shrilled the fair Edithia, bethinking her of her wrongs, and he did till he was tired. "Now, Johnnie," he said at last, "I'm thinking I've pretty well whacked you dead. Perhaps you'll be more careful how you handle your betters by and by." And seizing his hat, he ran down the stairs without seeing anybody, and slipping into the street, crossed over and listened. They were at it again. Seeing her enemy prostrate, the Tiger had fallen on him, apparently with the fire irons, to judge from the noise. Just then a policeman came hurrying up. "I say, governor," said George, "the folk in that there house with the red pillars do fare to be a murdering of each other." The policeman listened to the din, and then made for the house, and, profiting by his absence, George retreated as fast as he could, his melancholy countenance shining with a sober satisfaction. Chapter 28